You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 154.
We do what we do because freedom needs to have a stronghold in the world. We need to have some place where that light is always lit and where it burns and inspires the rest of the world that there are better things for you. And if you start forgetting that that's the way America was founded, then we're no better than the places that we go in and try to liberate, or the places that we fight when they try to, do bad things to America. We're no different than them.
Change Your POV Podcast is dedicated to helping veterans become just as successful out of uniform as they were when they were in. Sometimes this transition can be way more difficult than expected, especially when you let your military service be what defines you as a person. How do you move on? How do you rebuild the most important relationship in your life, the one with yourself? This week's guest shares with us his journey in this quest. At 17 years old in 1995, Jeff Adamec joined the United States Army, leaving for basic training the same day that he graduated high school. He was initially assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division as a combat medic before volunteering to go to Ranger School. He then began his service as a Ranger medic in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. In 1999, he tried out and was selected into the U.S. Army Special Forces. He changed his job to be a Special Forces Weapons NCO. Jeff would go on to be awarded the Silver Star for battle in Adamec Pass in 2003 Iraq. After 6 total combat tours to Iraq and Afghanistan, Jeff has also been awarded 4 Bronze Stars, an Army Commendation Medal with V Device for Valor, and a Purple Heart he received in 2009 when he was wounded and sustained major back injuries and a traumatic brain injury. Jeff never fully recovered from his injuries and began to show signs of PTSD that contributed to his medical retirement in 2013 after 18 years active duty as a Sergeant First Class. Jeff has been credited as a contributing author in the book Heroes Among Us by Chuck Larson, and is mentioned in additional books such as War Stories of the Green Beret, Roughneck 91, and Masters of Chaos. He worked for the Department of Defense as a defense contractor and for the Department of Homeland Security. He currently works at Cisco Systems as an IT professional. Jeff holds both a networking and security certifications and does veterans outreach and PTSD awareness through volunteering and public speaking. Jeff also leads motivational and leadership team building classes and seminars. Jeff currently lives in North Carolina with his wife of over 20 years and their 2 children. I had a fantastic time talking with Jeff about his experiences, and I know you'll enjoy this interview too. So let's get right into this. Hello, folks. Welcome to Change Your POV Podcast. I am your host, Eddie Lazary, and I am on today with Jeff Adamec. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing just great. How are you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing fantastic. Like I told you, I've actually read your resume. I've read your bio at the top.
You got a job opening? You got a job opening?
Yeah, that's awesome. So you reached out to me. Now, having just gone through your bio, it's very, let's just say you're a very accomplished soldier, right? And that's really, really awesome. I wanted to bring you on the show so we can talk about your experiences. Good, bad, ugly, indifferent, it doesn't matter. And then we're going to get into kind of what you're doing today and some awesome things you've got coming up here shortly in March. So this show, if you're listening to this live, folks, it is February 17th of 2017. And the event that he's going to be talking about, but he's going to get into that later in the show. So you got to stick with us throughout the entire show. But before we get too far, Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and your military career.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm originally from New Jersey. Grew up in New Jersey, spent my whole young life there, all 17 years of it. One thing that I always like to tell people right off the bat is that when I say I grew up in the military, it's literally the most true thing ever. I walked off of my graduation field at high school, handed my diploma to my mother, kissed her, to the recruiter's car, into the car, straight to basic training. So from the second I left high school, I was in the military, in the Army the whole time. I'd always wanted to join. I wanted to join the Marines at first, but they wouldn't let me join to be a medic, and they said I had to join the Navy. I didn't want to be in the Navy.
Yeah.
So the Army allowed me to be a medic, and they allowed me to be airborne, which was something that I wanted to be. And when I got to the Army, I had high aspirations of maybe one day being a Ranger or an SF guy, and quickly realized as I went through the military that everything I did just made me realize I can do whatever I want. And I not quickly, I mean, over the span of 18 years, obviously, but I moved up to the jobs that I wanted to go to just purely on heart. Now, here's something that a lot of people that know me will realize, but the listeners won't. I am 5'9", between the 180 to 200 pounds, depending on how much I'm working out. I am slow, I am strong, but I'm not fast. So I'm a horrible runner. And when you talk about SF guys, everyone always thinks about Special Forces, Green Berets being over 6 foot tall and run real fast and everything. And the only thing I could do better than anyone else was rucksack because I'm short and squat. But everything else I did through my entire military career, I had to work my butt off to be able to keep up with people, just to keep up.
Mm-hmm. So your teams, right? You're talking about SF. A lot of people are I would say familiar, but familiar is a relative term, right? A lot of people say,
right.
yeah, I'm familiar with SF and Navy SEALs. After all, I watched all the movies and I play Call of Duty, so I'm all up to speed, right?
Sounds about right. I mean,
yeah.
I thought that's how I got familiar with them.
Mm-hmm. So dispel some of these stereotypes that a lot of people have about operators. What's true? What isn't?
Well, what is true is we are absolutely good looking and charming and funny.
Yes.
I mean, that's absolutely true. And anyone that would say otherwise is either wrong or in the Coast Guard.
Right.
No. In actuality, we are not obviously the guys that were told to us in the 80s. We are not Chuck Norris. We are not, Sylvester Stallone, although he did play a good one in the first movie. We are the guys that nobody expects. We're the people that blend into the background, the everyman kind of thing. The only difference between us and the average person is that we are not the kind of people who use quit in our vocabulary at all.
Mm-hmm.
They come from all different types. I've seen guys, as anyone in the military is, the microcosm of society that the military is. I've seen people from Louisiana who couldn't get a sentence out that anyone but Louisiana people can understand. People like myself from New Jersey who, for me, I don't have as much of an accent as I used to, but I used to have a pretty deep one. People from California, people who come from liberal families, from conservative families, Democrat, Republican, white, black, Hispanic, Asian. I mean, it is, honest to God, Special Forces really is just a cross-reference of America as a whole. The only difference is we're the ones who keep volunteering to do more and more, because I've heard a lot of people say that people in special operations come from people with bad childhoods. My childhood wasn't exceptionally great, but it wasn't terrible either. I have nothing to complain about. But I do know that the fact that I wasn't always the cool guy or, the guy that you would think, I'm definitely not the guy, if you met me, you would think would be an SF guy. But that's the difference. That's really the best thing about Special Forces. We're not the guys that you think we are, mm-hmm. until it comes time to get our work done. And then you see what we can do.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to turn this into a political show, but all kinds of, let's just call it racial turmoil, political turmoil all over the place, with Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, the presidential elections, like all of this. Is there something that being a member of a tight-knit group that's multicultural, multiracial, with all these diverse backgrounds, and you're still able to, march to the beat of the same drum and accomplish a mission? Is there something to be said about what you've learned in that environment that can apply to the civilian world? What are people out there missing? What is it that's just not clicking with these folks out there?
I think it really comes down to the ability to put yourself in the shoes of other people. One thing, all right, so I grew up in New Jersey. Anyone that's from New Jersey knows about Jersey City, New Jersey. And if you've been around Jersey City, you've heard of what's called the Duncan Projects. Projects, not a good place. This is where I come from. I'm a white male from a, historically low rent black community. But yet I would never go so far as to think I understand what a black male in America, his experience is. And I can empathize. I support, my brothers and sisters, in the military who have come from that background. But the one thing I don't do is try to tell them that they don't know what they're talking about, or that what they believe or don't believe is real. I may not agree with it, but that's not my place. We live in America where you can go out there and, say what you want, do what you want to do. I mean, the reason why we all join the military, we talk about it all the time. I do what I did so that people can have the right to say what they want to say and do what they want to do, go to church where they want to go to church or synagogue or be Muslim or be Christian or Jewish or not, don't believe in God. It doesn't matter. The point is that you can't think what somebody else's experience is. And if you can't understand what their experience is, then what I probably think you should do is just accept the fact that you can only be supportive and empathize, but you can never say that you identify with it.
That's right. And it's so weird because, lately there's a lot of protests and riots and things going on, and this whole thing about burning the American flag. And I have family members and friends that have never served that ask me, they see that on TV or social media, and they say, I can't believe they're burning the American flag. Like, what do you feel about that? They ask me. And it's weird because my response surprises most people. And my response is this: Do I agree with it? No. Do I like it? No. But as long as it's protected, under the Freedom of Speech Act, and it's done, they have the proper burn permits and all this other thing. Like those are the freedoms that I volunteered and I sacrificed for, and some of my soldiers had paid the ultimate sacrifice to protect. And even though I don't like it and I don't agree with it, as long as it's lawful, then who am I to disagree with it? That's freedom. And a lot of people just are baffled by that comment. But I think unless you've actually been there, unless you've actually, bled in the same mud as your brothers and have done something for the country, it's really hard to kind of have a differing opinion than saying, because let me ask you this: how many times have you been on a mission and you've got multiple deployments under your belt? How many times you've been on mission where you strongly disagreed with whatever the mission was, but you went and executed 100% anyway?
Half of the time. Half of the time I could have or could not have, agreed with multiple things, the time we were going, what the mission objective was. There's plenty of times, but that's not our choice. Our job there, and the reason why we serve in the capacity that we do, is so that we can just get the job done that needs to be get done. I mean, if I was so smart and so perfect, then I would be running the world. Mm-hmm. I'm not. So therefore, regardless of what I think, I know that there's a mission to be done, and that my job at that time, kind of like Bill Belichick, that the whole thing that just happened, do your job, just do your job. If you do your job, you're just a piece of the puzzle, and you don't have all sight of everything that's going on. So any decisions you make for everyone when you're not in full grips of all of the information is a flawed conclusion, ultimately. So don't fall into the pitfall of thinking that you know what's best. You may not. You probably don't, and I definitely don't. I want to say that the more we talk to each other, the more I can't believe how much we think alike. I give that same exact answer to the flag burning. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of guys, and I know you know a lot of guys, and I know that the Marine over there that you got with you most of the time, he knows a lot of guys that have been deployed and still cannot stand to see someone burn their flag. I tell a lot of people I'd rather see an American burn it in defiance of something they don't like because they have that right than to see a foreign enemy burn it in effigy.
Absolutely.
Even then, I'm not going to do anything unless I'm sent there to fight an enemy about it. But I actually not celebrate, but I realize that person can burn that flag without fear of any kind of repercussion because of the sacrifices of you and me, and ultimately the ones who paid the real price, the long-term price, and the ultimate sacrifice for those freedoms to be had. I mean, it goes all the way back to the beginning. We do what we do because freedom needs to have a stronghold in the world. We need to have some place where that light is always lit and where it burns and inspires the rest of the world that there are better things for you. And if we start forgetting that that's the way America was founded, then we're no better than the places that we go in and try to liberate, or the places that we fight when they try to, do bad things to America.
Amen,
we're no
brother.
different than them.
Absolutely. So I got to ask, with all the deployments that you have and the experiences that you've had, I know that you can't get into a lot of great detail on a lot of those missions, but just from my own...
No, I could, but then you and everyone that was listening would have to die.
That's right, yeah. So tell me, I love combat stories, right? Because we all, regardless of when we served, regardless of where we went, what we did, even the branch of service, you get into these stories, man, and it's like, you know, you were there in a different time doing a different mission, but goddamn, those stories are still very similar. So just real quick, for my own personal benefit and for Bennett too, because he couldn't be on tonight, just share with us a crazy ass. It could be like one of those like, oh my God, can you believe that shit just happened? Or it could be just like an absolute hilarious, some shit that happened out on a mission, or just some, you know, those, you probably have 1,000 of them. I only served one year in Iraq and I got 1,000 of them. You've got multiple deployments, so I'm sure you've got a whole novel full.
Right. No, I got a good one. Actually, it's funny because right as you were saying that whole thing and you brought the whole, I can't believe this just happened. But my last deployment, I was a Special Forces K-9 handler, and my dog was not with me. We had just got done walking for a long, long time over a couple mountains, and one of the follow-on trucks, I had put my dog up in his kennel in there to give him a break. And thank God. So we get to the end of this march, and it's on the other side of a bazaar. We're in Afghanistan. We're outside Firebase Cobra. And because I was the dog handler, my job was ultimately to keep IEDs and to search for, you know, caches. And in the weird event that somebody, you know, tried to flee from us, the dog could detain them or track people. But I was in the front. Me, the 18 Charlie, and for those who don't know what that is, the 18 Charlie is a Special Forces engineer sergeant, basically your demo guy. So you have the weapons guy who I was, but also as a dog handler, I'm kind of a demo guy. And then the demo guy and our little crew of local nationals, ANA, you know, Afghan National Police. We get to the top of a hill. The bazaar is behind us. Our unit has secured, which was our team and our local nationals were training. We have seized this bazaar, and the commander, our captain, comes riding up on his ATV to the top of the hill with me, Chris, who was the guy's name. I'll just say his first name. His name was Chris. We did have a couple of regular infantry guys attached to us from one of the LURS units in Alaska. So we had one of those guys up there front with us as like an extra saw gunner, and I think four of the Afghan National Police. And right as the commander gets up there to talk, from the other side of the hill and above us, on the mountains above us, this absolute baited or planned ambush on the top of the hill begins. Now, the top of the hill is kind of cut, like we've seen a lot of those hills over there where it looks like it could be a landing zone. So the top of it's flat, even though it comes up to a kind of a point, it's like about a football field size. In the very center of this was old fighting positions that were obviously there for years and years and years. The ATV and everyone that was near the edge of the backside of the hill was able to run off before all the small arms fire got off and went all the way back to the bazaar. It's about 200 yards. Me, Chris, and the infantry guy, which got it for me, I can't remember his name, and 3 of the Afghanis get pinned inside that fighting position. And it was one of the 3 times where out of all my deployments where I knew that was going to be the end of it. I just knew we were done. We weren't, obviously. I'm here. You know, this isn't pre-recorded.
Right, yeah.
But we get the team sergeant is in the back, and he's yelling at us through the microphone that we need to move to his position. And Chris cannot get to his radio because, in all honesty, his radio had been shot off of his hip during the initial blast of fire that we got. So I have the only radio that's working. I was an attachment to the SF team, so I wasn't a permanent party member. And me and the team sergeant knew each other for years, and we knew each other very well. He's on there yelling. He's saying, you need to get down here. You need to get down here. And I get up there and I said, look, I can get down there, but you got to ask me nice. And it was just a moment where I just felt like I just needed a break, some kind of a break to tension, because the looks in the faces in the hole of the guys that we were up there with, we all were scared to death. And the team sergeant's yelling. It's not making it any better while we're getting shot at. He doesn't understand the situation up there. He just knows that we're on the hill. They're back there 200 meters. He's telling us, we'll cover you, move to our position. He doesn't understand that we're being held down pretty good. So I just said, hey, look, I'll come back there, but you got to ask me nice. And there was this big, long pause. I mean, it was almost like even the enemy heard us, because even they stopped shooting.
Right.
And Chris goes, well, I could pop smoke and throw smoke. And I'm like, good idea. So he pops smoke and throws a canister of smoke out in front of us. And the canister of smoke, when it hits where it's at, starts jumping up and down. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what's going on there? And then I realized they're shooting the can of smoke. So at this point, they've made it clear to us that they've just biding their time to smoke us. They're just messing with us. They're trying to break. And I could look and I could see the faces of the guys, other than me and Chris, who were not, multiple combat toured Green Berets, were starting to look like they weren't going to be able to move if we didn't get them up and moving right away. We had to, it was one of those moments where if we don't go now, they're going to never get up, and we're all going to die in this hole because we're not going to leave them here.
Right.
That and the fact that me and Chris probably had that same look on our face, and so we probably knew that it was time to go. So I tell them all, I'm like, hey, Chris, we just got to go. And he's like, I agree. He's like, on the count of 3, we'll get up and go. We'll just run, Mogadishu Mile in Afghanistan all the way back, and we'll just haul ass. 1, 2, 3, we all get up, and the Oakleys on the face of the infantry kid, who is an E4, fall off his face on the ground. And when everyone turns to run, Jeff, because he's looking out for that E4, reaches down to get the damn Oakleys. And even as I'm doing it, I'm thinking to myself, who gives a shit, man? It's a pair of sunglasses. But then the overwhelming idea of, oh, you're an E7 promotable. This is an E4. Oakleys aren't cheap. Grab his Oakleys. I mean, I just couldn't believe I was doing it when I was doing it.
Yeah.
We haul ass all the way back. I'm the last one there, obviously, because I stopped to get some soda and the sunglasses. And I get all the way back there, and we get into the bazaar, and I run up to the kid, and I'm like, I got this look on my face like, hey, buddy, look what I did for you. He grabs the Oakleys out of my hand, looks at him and goes, who gives a shit? And he throws them against the wall. and I have this look on my face like, you little prick. And then I just realize he doesn't understand what he's doing, and I walk away. And the next day, and for the rest of the deployment, as long as I was around him, he would apologize to me a million times. When they finally realized that the only reason I had those glasses was because when he ran, I went back to go get his sunglasses. Now, having said that, the real funny part is the interpreter who was up there on the hill with us, he left his M4 up there. So we all had to go back up there to get that anyway.
Oh, Jesus.
But I grabbed, and I remember the team sergeant, he was like, oh, because I asked you nice, and you bring me sunglasses, but leave an M4 up there.
Right,
He's
yeah.
like, fair enough. So that was the first one that came to mind, but that was the thing, the look on my face when he threw those things against, and I'm like, I almost died for these. Like, and you just throw them against the wall. And he didn't realize at the time. He was overwhelmed by it. We were all throwing up. It was like running a 12-mile run in 200 meters.
Yeah.
I never ran so fast in my life.
Yeah, and it's funny because, it's one of those things where you never feel more alive than when you almost die, right?
Oh, that's absolutely, oh my God.
You get back and you're like, oh my God, like I should have died. And it's just, I don't know, the adrenaline, the feeling of relief, the shaking, all that rolled up into one. And then about an hour or so later, it just crashes and you're done, right?
Yeah, if you could bottle up the drug that is the war high,
yeah,
and make it something you could sell, we would put all the cartels in South America out of business.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. So it's interesting, right? So you got these multiple deployments, Ranger, Special Forces. Well, I'm sure that comes with a ton of training, military training, all kinds of stuff, right? And experience.
Yeah. And a really cool, ring.
And a really cool ring. And then, so how much of that, right? All that experience, that time in service, all that training, all the schooling, how much of that did you just kind of think you put in your mental bank? Like, oh yeah, like I am so gonna find a job easily when I get out of the military. When that comes.
Oh, brother, man, I had no doubt that I was going to be the next CEO of JeffWinsTheWorld.com. You know what I mean?
Hell
I
yeah.
was gonna. There was no. I mean, come on, Special Forces guys. Every time you turn on the TV, there's some Bob Bevilacqua on Fox News, talking about this or that, or someone's writing a book, or there's a guy in a movie who. I mean, there was no. My scope of influence had no end in my own mind.
Right.
The reality, not so much. But like I said, we'll get into that. But I was convinced. And even in the face of guys I knew getting out, and then a year later showing back up around the unit. What are you doing back, man? You coming to visit? No, I got back in. I was like, why? I just didn't get it. Mm-hmm. Because we live in our own, we're a victim of our own success, and we are legends in our own minds. And no matter how much America thinks we're great, believe me, we're better in our own heads. I tell people that love and humbleness and, caring for others, it's not that Green Berets don't have these feelings. They do. They just normally don't involve anyone else but the individual Green Beret and himself. Mm-hmm. We love ourselves more than anything else. We're very, as much as we give and give and give, we're also a very, very not arrogant. We're very self-centered. And I think you need to have that. You need to be confident. That difference between confidence and arrogance is a very thin line. And the difference between a good Green Beret and a bad Green Beret, a lot of times I say, is whether or not you step over that line. Because the second you step over it and become arrogant, you stop thinking of others. You can be confident and take advantage of that confidence for the benefit of others. But when you're arrogant, you're not thinking of anyone but yourself. So it's a fine line you have to, and you've seen a lot of sergeant majors and really good captains who go on to be majors, and they cross that line because they've been so successful. And now they're just arrogant. They're no longer confident, and they stop being useful for the people below them and around them.
Absolutely. And the thing that a lot of veterans take for granted, myself included, is when you're in the military and you do cross that line, you've got people all around you that have no problem telling you all about it, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, putting you in check, and that whole accountability piece. I know sometimes we get little, butthurt over it when we're told that straight up, by your best friend or a platoon sergeant or whoever, your team chief, whatever the case may be. You get a little butthurt, but you're like, damn, thanks for, at the end, you're grateful and you're thankful for that feedback. And you get out of the military and you're like, damn, you can literally wander through the civilian sector and screw up every single day for a year, and no one will be kind enough to even tell you about it.
Oh, no, not at all. And then that's the thing is, one thing about being in the military is, and this is my opinion, and please, people out there listening, don't take offense if you were never in the military. A person in the military who is considered an quote unquote shitbag, and the Army people and military people know what I'm talking about, a tool bag, a toolkit, their worst day is probably an average day to a good day for some other people. And not that everyone's bad, but there are certain levels of how you act and how you perform on a day-to-day basis that just don't equate. And you get out, and it has a lot to do with it. We all know who the guys are at work that aren't the stellar performers. In the military, those people know because they get told day to day by everyone that's a good NCO as they're getting spot corrected, or their peers are picking on them, or I used to tell people all the time, if I don't pick on you, that's how you know I don't like you. Mm-hmm. In the civilian world, that doesn't exist, and we all know it. We all know it now, and when we're in the military, we kind of know it, but I don't think we really have a good grip of it until we get out and realize it when we get out, that there really is a disconnect between what people are thinking and what they'll say out loud and what people are comfortable with saying, and basically the thin skin, what people are willing to accept. But we do live in a world where people get their feelings hurt very, very easily. Mm-hmm. So it's just a byproduct of what we have to adjust. That's not our job to make them more thick-skinned. It's our job to adjust because we're the ones who have the ability to do it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, man. The onus is on you as the individual, as the veteran. And so this kind of goes into our next segment, and that's talking about, so for folks at home, this is February, and February is a month all about relationships. And what Jeff is going to talk about is, building the hardest relationship of all, and that is the one with ourselves. Like you said, we're very kind of self-absorbed, but to some degree kind of have to be in the military. You got to be confident. You got to know your shit, and you just not know your shit, but you got to make sure that everybody around you knows that you know your shit, because that builds confidence in them of you, right? And then
absolutely.
You get out of the military, and a lot of guys, they know when their ETS date is, and they get out and they're still not prepared. And then in your case, you actually kind of, you really didn't have a say. You were medically discharged, and so you weren't really ready to hang up the spurs, so to speak. But you were kind of, I won't say forced out, but you were asked to leave.
Given the option is what I say.
There you go.
I was given the option to stay on what they call co-ad because I was so close to my retirement date.
Yeah.
But that would have been 2 years sitting behind a desk. That was not what I was in the military to do, was sit behind a desk. I was in the Army because I loved being a Green Beret. Mm-hmm. And if I couldn't do that, I might as well, as my wife told me, why don't you just get out and start working on the next career?
Right.
Because you're just going to be miserable the next 2 years.
So let's talk about your transition out of the military. So was it, let's be honest here. Do you feel now, hindsight's always 20/20, do you feel now, looking back, that you were properly equipped to separate?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But in all honesty, with me, there was extenuating circumstances. Right. I had 2009. As a matter of fact, it was just a couple months after that story I told you. I had been injured in a fight where I got a TBI and massively injured my back. Took a while to get over the TBI, and as guys with TBIs know, it's never fully gone. You always have something, but I have a TBI. I have back injuries that have been building over years, as we all do in the military, but now it had gotten to the point where it wasn't getting any better. And then the little dirty secret that people don't want to talk about, the PTSD starts creeping in.
Mm-hmm.
As guys that are friends of mine are going overseas and not coming home, and you feel that feeling of I should have been over there with them, or you have the survivor's guilt of how come I didn't die when I had so many experiences that should have killed me. And there's all kinds of, whatever the reasons are, after 6 deployments of quite intensive fighting, I probably had PTSD a long time before. I think the fact that I couldn't feed the addiction of war anymore by going back over was probably what led it to come to a head. But I started having breakdowns in the relationships I had with others at work because I was having issues that I wasn't handling. They recognized it. I was in therapy for it. I wasn't afraid of saying I had it, but I really wasn't dealing with it. I wasn't getting any better. And so that was also put on my my disqualifying, list. And at the time, it was right when they were doing the adjustment to the system of med boarding people. So I was put in. It took a year for my packet to go through, but once they started that new process, my packet was back, done. 3 months later, I was out. So I had enough time to go stop by ACAP and see what it looked like, to turn my gear in that I've been holding out from turning in, to get told a million times that I needed to get this stamp here and this stamp here and this stamp here and go to this briefing here to talk about how much you're going to get paid. Oh, and you're getting, 80% disability, so you need to go over here and do this and this and this. And on top of that, I'm still going through therapy. I'm still going through recovery. I'm still dealing with all the PTSD issues that are not acute at that moment. I was getting them dealt with, but it was a slow process because I still wasn't quite in a state where it was able to be dealt with properly. At least I had the ability to admit I had it, which was, I thank God every day. And when I got injured initially, although the pain meds were given to me freely, I did not drink a drop of alcohol for 2 years from the time I got injured to the time 2 years later when I had a first beer after 2 years. And that was by design. I had seen too many guys who self-medicated with that and destroyed their lives and destroyed the lives of them around them. So having said that, I got all the pain meds I wanted, which didn't become a massive problem. But when I went to go get all pain meds, it was not easy. So I had all that stuff going on. I got out, and this is another story that, and I'm going to tell you because I want to know if you had the same thing. Everyone I talk to seems to have it. I go to that last day, and I walk in the room and I check my DD-214, and everything's good. And they make me sign that paper. They hand me my little folded flag, or for me, they were out of them. So they said they would mail it to me, and I guess check's in the mail because I still ain't got it. But I go home. I walk in my house. Now I'm retired. I sit down on my couch, and I have this giant weight feel like it just lifted off of me because everyone looks forward to the day they get out. So there's some mixed emotions. You don't want to get out, but you're out. Now you're free. You're no longer a part of that. Took my uniform off. I threw it in the corner like I normally do so it could make my wife mad as I planned it. Because you got to keep her on. You got to keep them on their heels.
Right.
And I go through the rest of my day. The next morning I woke up and my life had turned upside down because I looked at the corner at that uniform and realized that I was never going to put it back on. And from the time that I was 17 to that moment, my entire identity was the military. And although I wasn't the greatest soldier in the world and the greatest Special Forces guy, but I still was a Green Beret in the United States Army. I met my wife while I was in the Army. My kids looked up to me because of what I did. I was a Silver Star recipient from 3rd Special Forces Group, and people knew who I was. Everywhere I went, someone knew me because of me being an instructor, or someone knew me because of, hey, he's a really good guy, or he's a great SF guy, or he's an all right SF guy, or maybe even guys that hated me. But they knew me because I was an SF guy. And all of a sudden, I was not that anymore. And that's when things started really unraveling for me as far as what was I going to do with the rest of my life when what I am is I'm not allowed to be anymore. And that's when I became lost. And like I said, this is not a sad story. We got a happy ending, but I was lost. And I spent years, almost 3 years, running around trying to chase the dragon, so to speak, of that feeling that I had and that camaraderie and that brotherhood, going overseas which I wasn't supposed to go anyway, but going overseas to be on a special operations contract as a contractor, coming back, not happy. Get a job with the Department of Homeland Security doing anti-terrorism work. Moved to Chicago to do that. Big job, great pay. Wife and kids stayed at home, and that was all right. That was planned. I still got to go home on weekends, but I was in Chicago. They were home in North Carolina. I'd go work during the week, fly home on the weekends. Wasn't happy. I thought I wasn't happy because I was away from my family, and I was a little bit, but that wasn't the real reason. I quit that job, came back home because I just wasn't happy. And then I went to job fairs. I'm working overnights at Home Depot, and because that's the only job I could find that would take me after I had job hopped, 3-4 jobs in less than a year with no real purpose. And it was sad. I look back on it now, and that's a sad man to come down from such a proud Green Beret with a family that looked up to. I had doomed myself to become the thing I was afraid to become because I let my fear take over and my lack of self-identity take over. I forgot that the person I was that became a Green Beret was still there. The Green Beret and Special Forces, although I'll always hold it dear, is a job title. And if you make your job the only thing that matters, then you're doomed for disappointment because there's so much more to you as an individual out there and there's so much more you mean to other people rather than just what you do. For a time, I thought my wife would leave me because I wasn't a Green Beret anymore. She's like, I married you before you were a Green Beret. She goes, you being a Green Beret is only impressive to you and everyone else. She goes, you're still my husband. So, I got to give props to my wife as much as I can. Sarah is the most patient and she's great. She really is the medicine that I need in most times to handle myself in the world. But she brought me down back to reality with a statement like that. She goes, what are you worried about? She goes, you're not Sergeant Adamec to me. You're Jeff. You're never going to be what you think you are to me. You're something else to me. You're my husband. But I had rolled myself up into that feeling of that was my identity. Without that, nothing was going to be the same. But it was not true. It wasn't true. Everything that made me special, everything that made me able to do the things I did, when you're not a strong and fast person, when it comes from having heart to do it, when it comes from the drive and the desire to take challenges, all those things were still there. I just forgot that they were there because I forgot what my identity was. And then I was at a job fair and I saw a school for IT. And at the time I had stopped working Home Depot and now I was at least training canines out at a canine training facility. But I said, you know what? I kind of like IT. It's a good future. I said, I'll give it a shot. I started going to school. Now here's the thing. I'm getting up at 4:30 in the morning to drive an hour and a half to work. I work from 8 hours. Get done, drive an hour and a half to Raleigh, North Carolina, from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Go to school till 10 o'clock at night, and then drive an hour and a half home, study for 2 hours because I was not good at IT. I was really struggling to learn it. And then go into sleep for a few hours, get up and do it all again, 5 days a week. 6 months into it, my wife says to me, I haven't seen you this happy since you first got into the Green Berets. And I realized what was going on. I had that epiphany, that moment of clarity. That it wasn't what I do. It's how I conduct myself. It's the fact that you can't take away the person that you are and the person that made you a good soldier. Right. They can't. Only you can take that away. Nobody else can take that away from you. It's up to you to come to grips with yourself that you can find mission and purpose in life that is outside the military. That being a warrior is not a title that the military gives you. It's something that you live day to day. And you take it with you outside. When you leave the military, you just got to find it.
Yeah. So what was it that made you so happy? Was it the challenge, the fight, what was it that sounds like you were scrambling, you were balls to the walls, you were ODARC stupid to ODARC stupid. You were missing out on a lot of time with your family, but yet you found that you were happy. Was it because you had a direction that you were finally going in a destination that you were shooting for?
Not just a destination. All those things are correct. You're right. It was I was operating in chaos, which for as infantry and combat arms guys know that chaos is where we strive. Operating in chaos, doing things that were uncomfortable and that other people looked at me. When people would look at me when they heard what I was doing day to day, and that look in their face that they were like, how are you doing it? I strive off that. We all do. We love that thought that we're doing something that no one would even consider doing. And that's why we're different than other people. But it was more than that. It was the fact that it was hard. It was hard for me to do it. I had to I'm not 18 years old. I'm not 22. I'm not the guy that was in the 82nd as a young kid who could drink till 2 a.m. and go run 4 miles and be fine. Everything getting up that early was hard. Going to school was hard. The curriculum I was going to school for was beyond my mental capacity, in my opinion. So I had to study 3 times as hard as everyone else just to be able to get standard grades. All that, when I look at it on paper, Jeff should not be able to do. So you know what? Challenge accepted. Watch this. And that's that mentality that you've got to get back. Because that's the mentality that makes guys like us different, and the ones that employers look for, and the things that everyone says veterans are good about. That's it right there. It's not what you know. It's the person you are. And that person is, you're never going to escape yourself. You can only hide it. And unfortunately, I think fear and change that you're not used to, and you don't have the change that comes that is not with your buddies is the hardest change to have. We all know that. We all know that now. You get out and all of a sudden that camaraderie is gone. The Army keeps on rolling. The military just rolls on without you. And you get that hard reality that you were just a blip in a giant machine that's not even going to remember you. And, if you're not Patton, if you're not Eisenhower, ain't no one going to remember you. And it's a hard pill to swallow. You can either take that, realize it, learn from it, move on, find something else to put your focus into, or you can let it eat away at you like I did for 3 years, or like so many guys do, and have a bad ending. And that's why I'm here talking to you, and I think that's why we agree is that those endings have got to end, because the people that those guys are still there. They've just got to find a new mission. They've got to find a new objective, and they've got to focus on that objective. And it better be something that's outside your comfort zone and something that should be hard for you to do, because that's when you're going to do your best.
It took me a while, and I finally found myself, and I found that purpose, that mission, that drive again. And sounds like you've done the same thing. I mean, it took a while through a lot of trials and tribulations and failures and feeling lost, all of that, but you found it. A lot of guys I talk to, same thing. It takes them a while, several years. Some guys go back in, they come back out, and they still struggle. Some guys don't find it at all. But what, in your opinion, do guys need to do to find that quicker so they're not floundering for 3 or 4 or 5 years before they finally wake up and say, I finally found who I am outside of the uniform again?
Well, there's multiple things that you can do. There's multiple routes you can take. Not everyone's, road is going to be the same. Not everyone's journey is going to be the same. And that's what makes it great, is there's multiple ways to get there. Number one is you got to come to grips with the fact that your life isn't over. Your life's just beginning. I mean, here's the thing. Most of us we're in the military from the time we were too young to know any better. This is the first time, and I think the scariest thing for most guys is that this is the first time that they're really having to grow up. And people that are not military won't understand what that means. But we all know that if you messed up at your unit, you're going to get your butt chewed. You're going to get smoked maybe. Maybe you'll get a bad rep for a couple of weeks, get put on. Even if you really mess up, you might get some extra duty. But you ain't getting fired. That pay's still coming in. Someone's going to tell you what you should be doing. Someone's going to tell you how you should be doing it. And you're going to get the best leadership and the best, people. If you got the good NCOs and the good officers, you're going to get the best mentors around you to be able to succeed. That doesn't go away. When you get out, there's nothing. If you mess up, there's not going to be extra duty on the weekends working at, Macy's. If you mess up, they're going to fire you. And not only are they going to fire you, there's not going to be any money. And no one's going to tell you that you have to be at formation at a certain time. No one's going to say you need to go keep in shape and do physical fitness. No one's going to, give you your analysis to keep you off of drugs unless you have a certain job. All those things are gone. And without those things, we now are no longer children of a machine. We are now adults, full-on adults. For a lot of people, and myself included, that was the scariest part. I had not seen the real world. Yes, we have a dangerous job. What we do is very dangerous, and what we do is important. But because of the danger and the importance of what our job is, we're also not given the liberty to have as open and free a life as the standard American citizen. And that's something we give up for them, or that we give up for college that ends up being more if we stay long term. But the point is I was never given the opportunity to have to live out on my own. And the first time I did it, I was 36 years old with 2 kids and a wife and a $250,000 home that we had built that was only 2 years old, mortgage to pay, and 2 car payments, a dog, really bad back, really bad attitude, and no job skills other than pulling the trigger.
Right.
And when that all hits you at one time, you can either let your fear succumb and realize that you have nothing to give, or you can take the things that you do have that are still there and use them to your benefit to be able to go out there and make something in your life. As long as you get to the point where you realize that you're not going to get that $150,000 a year job right off the bat. And no one cares if you were first sergeant here or master sergeant here or sergeant major here. That means nothing to them. And you are no different than any other person going out there into the workforce. And when there are jobs that need to be done, and it's got to be done with the new guy, you're going to be the new guy. And that's another thing a lot of guys can't get over, is the fact that they are no longer the ones everyone looks to. They are no different than everyone else. And as well, they shouldn't be. But some guys have a problem with that. So there's getting with grips with that. There's realizing that you don't have the team anymore. Now, when I say that, I mean you do not have the active duty military there for you. And it's not that they don't still love you. They've got their mission to focus on. And I don't want them focusing on me. They need to focus on their mission. But we need to focus on each other. And it's not just you hoping someone comes around to take care of you. Right. Because teamwork is a two-way street. If you're not willing to pick up the phone and reach out and ask for some help or somebody to come hang out with, or let's go have a cup of coffee or something, if you don't look for that teamwork, it's not going to come to you. You have to go out and you have to work as hard to find those guys, because you're not going to just get thrown into a team room or a platoon room every day and be forced to live with each other. Now you have to work to be a teammate. You have to work to be a brother or a sister. You have to go out of your way to help these guys out. And you can't do it like we did it for all those years where you come back from deployment and no one talks to each other for a month while you're on leave. You've got to make the time. You've got to make the time to look out for each other. And you've got to do it when you feel the worst, because that's when the other person's going to recognize that they need to come in and give you the help. And you've got to accept the help.
Yeah, that's it. You got to accept it. That's probably one of the hardest things. Is it's hard to ask for it, but it's even harder to finally accept it when somebody offers. And that's something that I realize in the work that I do. I offer my services and my experiences to veterans all the time, and a lot of guys are like, they want to take me up on it, but then, for whatever reason, at the last minute, they either back out, or I don't know if it's because they're afraid that, something's going to, it's going to be revealed that they're actually human too, and that they don't know everything. And that's the other thing that veterans, I think, fail at miserably, is they get this idea, or this thought in their head that they need to know everything already. And so they're scared to ask questions that they think other people think they should already know, right? And that's
yeah. Well, what kills me is that we sell ourselves as veterans on being great leaders, right?
Right.
And one of the staples and cornerstones of leadership is being able to identify and speak out loud your weaknesses and flaws. And in the event of that, being able to surround yourself with the people that are A, going to be able to be better at it than you, or B, be able to help you get to where you need to be at. Right. And we fail miserably in that so many times, because we're all such self-starters that we could do it all ourselves. Well, here's what I tell guys all the time when they bring that up. Or they don't bring it up, but when I can see it happening with them. I'm like, tell me how many times you went out on a mission there, Chuck Norris, and fought the Taliban or Al-Qaeda by yourself? Oh, you never did that, right? Okay. When did you go on a convoy by yourself with you on the back of a Harley with nothing else? Oh, you never did that either? Okay, so if you've never gone out without your team, without your unit, to go out and fight, why would you accept a mission against the world that you don't know about, things that you can't control, or the worst? Why would you fight an enemy such as PTSD, an enemy that you know no intel about, that you cannot control? You would never fight that enemy in real life without your team. So why are you doing it now? You need to have a team to be able to fight. We've done it our whole lives. It's been built into us, and we strive on it. We're the best in the world at it, because so many militaries out there do not put that teamwork into it. We are the best at the world at it, until it comes time for us to have to be the ones asking for help, even though we don't realize that our entire lives We've been doing it with help the whole time.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's just being able to recognize the fact that they need to adopt things that they've already learned and know in the military into their now civilian surroundings. They are not or never will be a civilian again, and that's something that I always echo when I'm talking with veterans. Just don't try to become a civilian again, because you never ever will be a civilian again. We are wrapping up here, Jeff. We've run out of time. It's it's just unbelievable how fast this goes. You are part of there's an event going on. It's called Translate Your Military Skills into a Successful IT Career, that's coming up here, I believe, on March 1st. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, real quick. I work for Cisco Systems in Raleigh, North Carolina. I work very intensively on my own with veteran outreach, which is how you and I came to meet. I do a lot of motivational speaking, and a lot of what we talked about today, I give in a long term for a lot of students and veterans groups and just organizations like, businesses. So Cisco, in working with NC4ME, which is a hiring organization for military, and groups like Vets in Tech, which I'm very, very involved with, they are going to have what's called the IT Awareness Day on March 1st here in Raleigh, North Carolina at Cisco, and it's a completely free. It's not a hiring event. It's not anything more than helping veterans who may or may not want to get into the IT industry look at the ways that they can get through IT. Now, here's what's important about it is we have to be able to network, because even if you don't want to be an IT person, someone you may know will. Mm-hmm. And if the more people you know, you may come and talk to Jeff, and Jeff, I don't have any interest in IT, but I really, I like what you guys are doing here. Well, man, let me see if I know anyone else. I can't help you, man, if I don't know. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And so you need to try to participate in as many of these things as possible, because the more people you can add to your network, the better chances of success for you, your family, and then ultimately the guys that you're going to help next are going to get out of it. We have to help each other out. I'm sick of hearing veterans say that the world owes them something, mm-hmm. and we're waiting around for someone to help us. That's not going to happen. We have to do it ourselves. You and I are already doing it now. We got to get the rest of these guys to pick up a little bit of the slack and start coming out here and helping out and getting these guys. If you're doing well, you owe it to the young guys, just like you owe it to privates when you were a good NCO, to translate that ability to get successful back down to them.
Hell yes. So this is in Raleigh, North Carolina on March 1st. What's the location?
It is going to be at Cisco Systems in what's called the Research Triangle Park in Morrisville. They can go online on LinkedIn and go find Cisco Systems, or go find NC4ME, all one big word. And at that website, they can find the link to get the tickets. It says you have to get a ticket, but it's a free event. I recommend, if you're in the area and you're looking to get out, or if you're out and you don't have anything going on, come on out, come see us. I'll be speaking at the event. There'll be other veterans speaking at the event. Vets in Tech will be there. The USO will be there. The National Guard will be there. All kinds of organizations are going to be there. It's a great opportunity to network and see what's going on out there, and try to help some of these guys get on their way to a career that's fulfilling. And the IT industry, it ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, that's right.
This is a growth industry. I mean, and I'm telling you that as a Green Beret, I found something that I love my job. I really do.
That's awesome, man. And all of the links to everything that you just talked about will be in the show notes for this episode. Jeff, where can people connect with you and find more about you and what you've got going on?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just put in Jeffrey Adamec. There will be 3 pictures that pop up. Look for the sexy guy with the beard. That's the guy you want to find.
Sexy guy with the beard.
Yeah, you'll be able to pick me out from the other ones. One of them says it's a guy from Chicago. I think that's somebody trying to catfish. There's a younger guy from Texas. That's not me either. I am the guy with the beard from North Carolina. Like I said, it's pretty easy to pick me out. You can find me there. You can find me on Twitter. To be quite honest with you, I don't know. You and I linked up through Twitter. I don't know my Twitter handle. I think it's jadamec77. But either way, if you know the link, if you know your Twitter account, just scroll down your Twitter followers and you'll find me on there. It'll be the guy in the military uniform, looking all sexy with his gun, sitting on a vehicle.
Absolutely.
And I'm just starting to set up a Facebook account that is just for this kind of stuff. I'm not quite there yet, but I will post it on my LinkedIn and Twitter when it's up and running fully, and you'll be able to find me on there.
Very cool. All right, folks, you heard it here first. Jeff Adamec, and let me tell you guys, he's going to come back on the show at some point. I'm not sure when or what we're going to talk about, but
no. Yeah, I got to get on with that Marine and talk about Yardbirds, because if I don't get it, I was actually talking to you guys through my radio.
Really?
And yeah, I was all in that conversation.
Yeah, we got some crazy shows, man. But sometimes we talk about Yardbirds.
Yeah, sometimes they have to be talked about.
That's right. Hey, folks, you can find all of the show notes for everything we talked about by heading over to changeyourpov.com/episode 154. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. You are not going to want to miss it. Come be a part of our community over at Change Your POV Squad Facebook group. All right, folks, until next time.